Okay, so today we're going to talk about something you probably have stuffed in a closet somewhere. But I promise, after this, you are never going to look at it the same way again. We're diving into the vacuum cleaner, and believe me, it has this absolutely wild story of physics, engineering, and just pure genius packed inside. So, let's get into it. I know, it sounds like the beginning of a really weird joke, right? But the answer is suction. These two things are actually bookends on the incredible, century-long evolution of the vacuum cleaner. It's a journey from a machine the size of a car to a tiny, intelligent robot that maps your house. So to really appreciate just how genius the vacuum is, we have to go back to a time when just keeping your house clean was this constant, and I mean constant, losing battle. The enemy wasn't just the dirt you could see, it was this invisible invasion of dust. And the tools they had to fight it? Let's just say they weren't great. I mean, think about it. You had brooms, you had those carpet beaters you'd hang over a clothesline and just whack for ages. And sure, that got rid of the big chunks of dirt, but the real villain, the microscopic stuff you couldn't see, the dust mites, the pollen, the bacteria, all that stuff was left behind. Sweeping just kicked it all up into the air. So the very act of cleaning was actually making the air inside your home dirtier. It was a problem you just couldn't solve by pushing dirt around. The big shift, the real breakthrough, came when someone finally stopped thinking about pushing dust away and started thinking about pulling it in. And that, right there, was a total game changer for how we think about cleaning. This. This is the simple, brilliant question that a British engineer named Hubert Cecil Booth asked back in 1901. He was watching a demonstration of a machine that used jets of compressed air to try and blow dust off of train seats, and he just thought, this is so stupid. You're just moving the dust from one place to another. That simple observation changed everything. And you have to love how he tested his idea. This wasn't some fancy lab experiment. He literally went to a restaurant, laid his handkerchief on a dusty velvet chair, put his mouth on it, and just sucked in air. He nearly choked, but when he pulled the handkerchief away, the underside was caked in dust. And that was it. That was the aha moment. He'd proven that suction worked. Okay, so here's the core science, and it's a little bit backwards from what you might think. A vacuum cleaner doesn't actually suck. It's not reaching out and grabbing dirt. Instead, there's a fan inside that creates an area of low pressure. And well, nature hates a vacuum, right? So the higher pressure air in the rest of your room rushes in to fill that low pressure space. And it carries all the dust and pet hair along with it for the ride. It's all about that pressure difference. So, Booth's idea was fantastic, but his first machine, well, let's just say you couldn't exactly tuck it away in a closet. The physics was solid, but the engineering had a very, very long way to go. And I am not exaggerating here. Seriously, forget about a little appliance you can wheel around. We're talking about a machine that needed its own dedicated transportation. Just picture this. It was this massive, bright red, gas-powered beast that was pulled down the street by horses. The crew would park this thing outside a building, then run these huge, long hoses in through the windows. It was so loud and so unusual that whole neighborhoods would come out just to watch. You didn't own a vacuum, you hired a vacuuming service. It was an event. I mean, this comparison just puts it all into perspective, doesn't it? We went from a roaring engine that you had to hire like a contractor to a quiet, wireless device that you can hold in one hand. The leap in technology is just staggering. So how did we get from that horse-drawn carriage to the thing in your closet? Well, it happened in a few key stages. First, in 1908, an inventor named James Spangler made the first electric, kind of portable version. He eventually sold his patent to a guy named William Hoover, a name you might recognize. But the real game changer was in the 1950s. Manufacturers started using these new, lightweight plastics instead of all that heavy metal. And boom, suddenly, vacuums were light enough and cheap enough for the average family to own one. So by the late 20th century, vacuums were pretty common, but they still had two huge problems. First, the bags would clog up with dust and the vacuum would lose section. And second, you were always tethered to the wall by a cord. The next wave of innovation was about to solve both of those. The key to the bagless vacuum is a principle you've definitely felt before: centrifugal force. You know when you're on a playground merry-go-round and you feel like you're being flung outwards? That's it. An inventor named James Dyson figured out he could harness that same force to separate heavy dust from light air without needing a bag at all. Here's how this incredibly clever system works. The dirty air gets sucked into a cone-shaped cylinder and is spun into a tiny, high-speed tornado. The heavier dust particles literally can't make the tight turn, so that centrifugal force flings them against the outside wall where they fall down into the collection bin. The clean, much lighter air just continues up through the middle of the vortex and out of the machine. It's an absolutely elegant piece of physics. No bag, no clogging, no loss of suction. Now, to create that powerful little vortex inside something you can actually hold in your hand, you need a motor that is just unbelievably fast. Modern brushless digital motors can spin at up to 125,000 RPM. To put that in perspective, that's 5 times faster than the turbine in a commercial jet engine. It's an absolutely insane amount of power sitting right in your palm. But all that power doesn't mean much if the tiniest dust particles just get blown right back out into the room. And that's where HEPA filters come in. These are these incredibly dense filters that can trap 99.97% of all microscopic particles down to 0.3 microns. We're talking about things like pollen, pet dander, mold spores, and bacteria. This is what really turns a vacuum from just a cleaning tool into a genuine health device. So, we've pretty much mastered suction, we've perfected filtration. What's the final frontier? Giving the vacuum a brain. And that is the era we are in right now, where the machine doesn't just clean, it thinks. A modern robot vacuum is basically a little self-driving car for your floors. It is absolutely loaded with sensors. It's got LiDAR, which uses lasers to measure distances and map the room. It has infrared sensors to spot obstacles or cliffs, like your stairs. And it has onboard cameras to identify specific things like shoes or cables. All of that data gets fed into an AI that builds a live 3D map of your home. And the software running that whole show uses this mind-bending algorithm called SLAM. Just try to wrap your head around this. Imagine you're dropped into a dark, unfamiliar maze with only a flashlight. You have to draw a map of the maze while at the exact same time figuring out where you are on that map you're still in the middle of drawing. That's SLAM. And it's what lets the robot clean your house in neat, efficient lines, instead of just bumping around randomly like the early models did. So when you really step back and look at it, the humble vacuum cleaner is so much more than it seems. It's this perfect, everyday example of applied physics. It's a testament to over a century of incredible engineering, and it's become a quiet guardian of our health. The journey from, essentially, a bundle of twigs tied to a stick, all the way to an AI-powered robot that silently maps and cleans our homes. I mean, what an incredible story of human ingenuity. It just makes you look around at all the other simple, everyday objects in our lives and wonder, which one is next? What's the next thing waiting for its own revolutionary leap forward?